Triangle Strategy's most important aspect involves the many branching paths throughout a playthrough. The ending you get will be dependent on the path you take, as well as your conviction levels. On top of that, there's a ton of recruitable characters to get, places to explore to find good accessories, there's items that'll increase your weapon rank, class promotions for characters to rank up and become more powerful, and just a ton more. We're not even talking about combat in this guide. This is just going to be a general tips guide, but I do plan on making a combat guide as well, so be on the lookout for that too, because there's some pretty good combos and setups you can do in this game. If you guys have any questions about the game, or you're interested in me covering a certain topic, just let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them, or maybe even make a guide depending on what you guys are asking. That aside, here are some beginner tips for Triangle Strategy. When it comes to exploration, nearly 9 out of 10 times there's at least one item that's really good. In Chapter 3, for example, at the Frost Archives, you can find a magic ring. Or over in Hyzant, also in Chapter 3, you can find an ice amulet. But there are some pretty notable good accessories earlier on that I wanted to make sure you guys get. In Chapter 4, there's a Vanguard scarf right here next to this Frost Shield Knight, which is a pretty powerful accessory. Whoever has it equipped will go first in battle, so some people like to give it to Eridor so he can provoke a bunch of enemies at one time. I've also seen people give it to Gila so that she can cast haste pretty quickly. I like to give it to Benedict or Julio since they buff your physical and magical damage. Another really good accessory to get early on is the golden pinky ring, which Lionel will sell you for 5,000 coins at the encampment in the beginning of Chapter 7. If you equip it and kill enemies with the character that it's equipped on, the enemies will have a higher drop percentage. It seems to boost the uncommon drop rate tables as well. I definitely get more of the blue uncommon bags with equipping it rather than when I don't equip it. I like to equip it on either Serenoa or Roland, but my main person I have it equipped on is Frederica because of her DPS with Scorch. With Frederica, I'm able to kill 3 enemies at one time, and you'll see here on the right hand side that the accessory procs, and most of the time the enemy should leave behind some spoils. Which, by the way, I don't know if this is too beginner mode, but you should definitely be picking up these bags as often as you can, especially the gold and the blue bags. Those are the ones that have better items in them. Just another little tidbit here for you guys. The mock battle that opens up in Chapter 7 called Close Quarters Combat is a pretty good way to farm for early quality materials like quality iron and quality fiber, which are all materials that you're going to need for upgrading your skills with the blacksmith. Also, in Chapter 7, pick up the red scarf accessory here in this house. It's another pretty good accessory, and when you have it equipped, every time you kill an enemy, you'll get some HP back, which is perfect for a character like Roland, since I'm not sure why, but the AI likes to really pick on him a lot. And one final accessory for you guys in Chapter 7 Part 2, the merchant here at Wolfort will sell a speed ring, which I suggest picking up. Always good to give speed rings to slower characters like Benedict. Now about party recruitment, there's 2 types of characters you can recruit. Characters throughout the story like Corentin and Rudolph in Chapter 3, and then there's the encampment recruits. Each recruit is locked behind a specific conviction value, and if you played the demo thoroughly and took the save data from the demo into the main game, you'll find that you've already got characters to recruit depending on your conviction values that you built up. This is a pretty minor spoiler here, but I think that explaining it will help you out if you're fearful of not being able to recruit every single character in one single playthrough. There's a New Game Plus at the end of the game that is going to give you the ability to see your conviction values as well as how much conviction you need to recruit certain characters. This is a topic that I'm going to need to do a separate video on, but just try not to sweat it too much. As you play through, you're going to get all of the encampment recruitments eventually. It just may take longer for some recruits compared to others that you might get, because say that one specific parameter of your conviction isn't level high enough. For instance, I didn't end up getting Jens the blacksmith until about Chapter 8 because my morality was super low, but I did end up getting Archibald before that, and to recruit him you need to have 400 morality and 500 utility. And to get Jens, you needed 450 morality, so I was lacking a little bit there. But just try not to get too wrapped up in recruits. After you beat the game, you'll start to see things more clearly in how to recruit whoever you'd like. If you're like me and neglect some of your recruits and don't use them in battle, they can start really falling behind in levels. And thankfully, it's not something you need to worry about too much. If you bring in a character that is 2 levels below the recommended level, you'll start gaining experience super fast. I saw that sometimes my neglected recruits were gaining 100 experience per turn. So you don't need to worry about having to babysit them for too long. They'll eventually catch up pretty quickly just through a couple of mock battles. Final tip for you guys, spices become available by chapter 5. And this is something you want to be using a ton. They're pretty cheap and essentially give you buffs or debuffs in item form. These things are great because if you had a turn with a character that was less than optimal, well, at the very least now they can buff themselves or debuff enemies. It's especially good with Anna since she has 2 turns in one go. So you can buff yourself up twice in a row or debuff an enemy and get to attacking them, all sorts of different combinations. In chapter 9, you'll get access to swift spices, which cast haste or slow on enemies, which is extremely useful. I bought every single one that I could. These were just some general tips for your first playthrough, but if you want some combat tips, I'll be making a video for that too.